Hello. So this is a video showing off some of the status effect stuff. This is for the programmers, but I mean, if anyone else wants to look at it, feel free. Um, so to start, we took Manas's Health Manager script, which is the basic implementation of health and stuff, and we've turned it into this class called Damageable. And you'll see a bunch of new stuff here, but the core of it is the same. Um, this class is going to be used for all things that can take damage, whether that's enemies, the player, destructible objects, so like I don't know, Isaac has fires, whatever, that kind of stuff, um, etc. And you'll see that inherits from mono behavior and also the interface iStatus target, and which has these functions and these variables that it must have. Um, so I'm not normally this zoomed in, but I'm zoomed in just for the purposes of the video. I don't code like this. No one codes. I mean, maybe some people code this zoomed in, but anyway, you get the idea. Um, Yeah, so there's a bunch of stuff that's been changed, but the main thing that this video is about status conditions. So I'm gonna go to base status effect. So there's much code here, but this is the base scriptable object for status effects. It's an abstract class, and it's got all these criteria here, right? Um, looks very complicated, but the long and the short of it is, um, you can apply status to a damageable by running the apply status um, function with an effect argument, and it will create a clone of that effect. It'll basically make a copy of that scriptable object, and then it will add it to the list of status effects on that damageable. And then it will run the onApply section of that clone that's been generated. So that onApply function, um, some status effects I assume are going to be only applicable to combatants, not damageables. Like in Isaac, you can't burn the fires that you can extinguish with your tears. You can't apply statuses to that. So if the burn status effect is only on combatants, then and this thing is not a combatant, it'll remove the status immediately. If not, it will start the status action. So on the damageable itself, um, there is a function called do status actions. What it does is it goes through all the status effects on each damageable, and it says, uh, check on them. Just give them a heads up, check on them. And this runs every frame. So this is using update. Um, and there I'll talk about why and what we can do to avoid that if we want to avoid that. There's reasons for it. But what ends up happening is it takes the damageable that is the host of this status. So this is the thing that is burning, and it checks on it. So first of all, its duration goes down. One of the variables up here is the duration of the status effect, right? And one of the status types is a single action, and the other one is an action over time, right? And so these two status types here, and we can add more as we go if more things pop up, but this should account for most of them. A single action status type is a status that only does a thing once, right? So when you put the status on something, it does a thing once. That's it. Now, the action over time type status effects are the ones that do an action repeatedly over time, usually with some kind of cooldown in between. Um, so, for example, like fire or burn status effects in a lot of games, they like burn and do damage every like second or something, right? That kind of thing. And so the duration goes down when it gets updated by the damageable that it is the host, and then it checks should this status effect end, and that function is down here. It's pretty basic right now. If the duration is less than 0, uh, run the onEnd function and then return true. So if there is status effects that do something special when they end, for example, some kind of status effect that does increasing damage as it goes on, and then at the end, some kind of explosion, right? That explosion would happen in the onEnd function down here. And if should end returns true, in which this case, when the duration is less than 0, it will remove the status. Uh, and if the status is not an action over time status, it just, this function is done, it ends here. But if it is an action over time type status, then um, if the current action cooldown is less than or equal to 0, right here, um, then it will run the status action again, and then it will reduce the cooldown by time.delta time. So in the status action itself, the cooldown gets set to the action cooldown, the base action cooldown up here, um, if it is an action over time type status. If it is not, then it just gets set to 0 because it's not even a variable that's being used. Um, and then, yeah, remove status, it uh, takes the host damageable, finds this status effect, and removes it, and then it destroys it. So when you clone and yes, you can't normally clone scriptable objects, but I've written a bit of an extension to help us with that. But when you clone a scriptable object, we're taking up space in memory, so we have to manually destroy it. Um, but yeah, I can show that to you now, and what this lets us do is you'll see the status effect list here. I don't have anything fancy set up. Don't worry about these base stats here. This is all old code from like something else. Don't worry about that. But what's important is this base status effect here. This is super simple. Um, oh, another thing I forgot to mention that might be important before I show anything is the base combatant controller. We are planning on using this for every single thing that is a combatant. Um, for example, players, the enemies, that kind of stuff. Not things like, pots, like, I don't know, fires and stuff like in Isaac. I'm just thinking of Isaac things. But basically, anything that can take damage that is more than just some kind of static object. And this inherits from damageable. So it has all those things that I talked about previously, as well as some other stuff. Um, it has no additional functionality, just thought I would mention it. This is what Andrew's been working on, so there's that. But all this stuff should work with the base combatant control. Let's see it. So I have nothing too special. I don't even have something shooting. I All I have is on the game manager, it's just some super hard coded stuff like uh, I have a test enemy, I have a test status, and then when I hit the O key, it's going to apply that status to that test enemy. This is just me being able to test, does the status stuff work? Can I see the health going down on damage over time stuff? So I'm going to hit the O key right now, and you'll see a burn status afflict this enemy and its health points are going down, and after a while it will go away. So it did about 24 damage there. So I'm going to actually hit the O key twice, but with a delay, and you'll see that the tick damage is actually, it's going faster because there's two status stacks now that there's only one less, and then now it's down to there. So that took 2 times 24. I can't do the math. It's what, 48? It's too much math. But anyway, um, going on to how you would make your own status effects. It's actually super easy, hopefully. Um, so in the damage system folder, there's a folder just for status effects. It has the I status target and base status stuff here. But um, what I was imagining is that we'd make folders for each one, just in case there's unique assets for each one. I don't know. We'll see. But you'd make your own script that inherits from base status effect. And something about base status effect is that basically all of these functions are virtual. And what that means is that if they have any unique behaviors, you can override them, right? So the burn status effect, I'm going to override the status action, which is like the thing that runs the main action that this thing does, right? And I'm gonna run the base of what it does, like all this stuff right here, just resetting the cooldown. But then I'm also going to take the host damageable that owns this bird status effect that got hit by it, and then apply damage based on the damage per tick, which is a variable that I've added just for the burn status. So I also create a asset menu up here um, for the burn status effect. You can get rid of this once you make the status itself, but just for ease of use, it's super nice to have it there, at least for now. So what that lets me do is I can hit right click, create status effects, and the burn status effect, right? And I mean, I'll make a new one. I'll call this like super burn or something, right? Um, but here's the original one I had. So uh, most of this stuff isn't necessary. I just put it for fun. But a display name, if you want to display, like if we ever want to display what the status types you have on UR, etc., etc. All that kind of stuff. Status type, action over time. So this is the status type here, and as you saw before, there's an enum, and you can pick what type of status it is. Um, I'll hit super burn actually. This is more relevant because it's a fresh right off the boat burn status here. And so I'm gonna like call this like super burn or something, right? And then the status type, it's not a single action thing, it's an action over time. So I'm gonna say it's an action over time, and you're gonna see that this new variable popped up here, the action cooldown, right? Um, so the target criteria, I'm gonna let this thing hit combatants only. So no fire pots, no fires, just only enemies and players, that kind of thing. This burn is it's gonna last forever. It's gonna last fucking 10 seconds. It's gonna last 15 seconds, and then it's gonna tick. Um, it's gonna do its action every like zero point 0.2 seconds. So it's gonna go 5 times a second. It's gonna be crazy. Um, and then I'm gonna make it do 1 damage per tick. So this is my new super burn status here. I'm gonna go to my game manager. I'm gonna go test this bad boy out. And we'll see how that goes. So what I'm imagining is, this game manager code is like very simple, like apply status there. But on the base abilities, you would basically um, do something similar to the status where you'd create a new ability, right? And you would have a criteria where you see it says the status specific variables like damage per take. You just drag a status in there, and then if that attack did a status, then you do all whatever you want with that. But um, yep, get the idea. I'm gonna go test out the super burn. Here's the enemy here. I'm gonna hit the O key. And wow, it's going. It sure is going. It sure is burning. Oh my god, it's doing a lot of damage. There it goes. Oh my god, okay, that's a lot of damage. That's more damage than I thought. 25. Does that math add up? That lasted about 15 seconds, 5 times a second, 5 times 15, 70. That's 75 damage. Yeah, that adds up. So yeah, it works. Um, so yeah, that's about it.